What's really easy to mess up but takes a lot of time to get right? Yes, it's your go-to-market strategy. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, if you're new to my channel, then I'm Rig, and in this YouTube channel, we discuss tips, tricks, and strategies that help SaaS startups grow from 0 to 1 million MRR in 12 months or less. Now, the first step in making a great go-to-market plan is nailing down your offer. Rob Walling, founder of Drip, also talks about this in his microconference talks. He calls this period the learning phase. After you've found the right product market fit and just before you plan to scale, there is this learning period where you learn a lot about who your ideal customers are and what is your position in the market. And a lot of this revolves around the idea of niching down to blow up. Understanding one space and one industry is super critical, especially when you're just starting out. If you have a look at all the big companies out there, everyone, whether it was Facebook, they started with Harvard, whether it was Uber, they started with black cars just in San Francisco. Everybody starts small and with time they go and expand. So niching down and understanding who your ideal customer is and what are their motivations and struggles and speaking to them. Rob Walling talks about how he thought of Drip as an email marketing software but felt like his software did so much more and the word just didn't help people explain what Drip, his company, and his software could do. He then thought of marketing automation but realized that people often attach a very enterprisey picture to that. And he came down with a message that said, marketing automation that does not suck. Now, positioning isn't just about the headline you put in your website, but it's interesting to see how that message allowed Drip grow by 200% once they had nailed it. So the first step is always messaging. I have a separate video where I explain how to find out your customer job to be done and nail your messaging. I'll link to that in the comments below. The second point is building a customer journey map. Now, before you close this video and go away, hear me out. If this was any other business but SaaS, my second point would be obsessing over user acquisition. But that's not what SaaS is about. More traffic in any SaaS product or service does not necessarily mean more customers. SaaS is the business of customer retention, where the entire business is built on recurring subscription, and you get your values through your MRRs and ARRs. And that will not come if all you're concerned about is getting people onto the door. You have to actually take the time out to build things on the back end and make sure that customers actually stick with your product when they have come to try your product out. And for that, you have to get them to their first value moment and full value realization as quickly as possible. First value moment is about getting the customer to experience the thing that's most important to them when they are looking out for a solution like that of yours. Full value realization is when customers are happy with your product and see long-term value in it. Now, both of these topics are separate videos in themselves, and I've covered them in my channel. Again, I'll attach links to them in the comments below. The third is campaigns. Now, there's a problem whenever we are discussing things like positioning, go-to-market, and in videos like these, because it's made to appear that the entire process is linear, when actually it's not. And from my experience of building these campaigns for the last 3 years, I know for a fact that all of these things are intertwined and one thing leads to the other. Often it also becomes a catch-22 situation because I know that you cannot build a customer journey map or understand what is it that customers found very valuable inside of your product without having campaigns which bring in those customers and give you that feedback. So you have to break the cycle somewhere. Now, that being said, there are two types of campaigns you can run. The first is organic and the second one is inorganic. When we are talking about organic channels, the first step is always to launch on places like Indie Hackers, Product Hunt, and AppSumo. Now, there's a lot of content on the web that already covers this. I myself have separate videos on this, so again, you can go watch them later. Now, we don't recommend that you start with inorganic channels or paid media before you've reached your first 10K MRR. That's getting ahead of yourself and you have not fully completed the learning phase at that point. So in organic only, once you've launched on all these places, the next step again is to leverage third-party platforms. The fundamentals remain the same. That is, your product does not have enough traction right now. So you go to places where your audience, ideally your ideal customer profile, hangs out and you try to market your product there. But there isn't just these popular platforms that you can market your product on. There's also 3 other types of third-party partnerships that you can run. The first is third-party channels like blogging and podcasts. So you can write guest posts on these platforms that get a lot of traffic and talk about how people can benefit from your product, not what your product is about. There's an important distinction there. So the second is building partnerships. So we recommend that you go out and build relationships with other influencers, community leaders, and authoritative figures in your space. I don't recommend that you go out and try to approach micro and nano influencers for promoting your product. And that's because often these micro and nano influencers think very short term, and what they'll give you is a one-off campaign in exchange for some amount of money. And that's not going to do you a lot of good. What we recommend instead is you build relationships with some established figures, and then you establish a revenue share relationship where every time they market your product and you make a sale, they get a cut of the revenue. That's the one that we've seen work the best. You can also do the reverse, which we call vanity marketing. So reach out to these authoritative figures and write to them saying, hey, you're incredible at what you do. I guess we are in the same space. We would love to have you on our platform and talk about this thing. And when they come to your platform, they'll bring in their audience along with them. And their audience will get exposure to your product. If you do it genuinely and if you do it right, then the influencer might also be curious about your product. They might ask about it, and then what you can do is you can give them a free version of the tool and let them play around with it and let them go out and talk about it more. The third way is to growth engineer. So you can try to find out hacks inside of your product or launch a similar version of your product on other places where your ideal customer hangs out. So think of Gmail extension, think of the Chrome App Store, think of Shopify, think of Wix, think of all these platforms where you can launch a smaller version of your product and make it rank on top, so that your ideal customers can discover your product through these different platforms, and then you can slowly grow out of these platforms and have your own tool. Now, when you're confident about your customer journey map, you understand exactly the kind of people you want to target, you have already hit your 10K MRR, then you want to start thinking of some long-term organic strategies along with paid marketing. So those are the 3 critical things you need to have in your go-to-market plan. The first is making a compelling offer, understanding very clearly who your ideal customer is and niching down to blow up. The second is building your own customer journey map, thinking about what is going to be your aha moment or the first value moment for your customers and what is going to be the full value realization, and helping your customers reach to those 2 points as quickly as possible. The third is building campaigns. So thinking about organic and inorganic strategies. In organic, you want to leverage partnerships, and once you've hit your 10K MRR, you want to start thinking about long-term organic strategies and also paid media. That's all for this video. This was Mrig, and I'll see you in my next video on understanding product messaging.